The emergency lighting cast a sickly green pallor across the horizon's bridge, transforming the once pristine command center into a tomb of technological despair. Captain Elena Rodriguez pressed her fingertips against the quantum interface, feeling nothing but the cold emptiness of a system that had long since surrendered its will to function. 32 standard days. 32 eternities of drift and silence. A ship's massive viewscreen displayed an unbroken expanse of stellar darkness, punctuated only by distant pinpricks of starlight that seemed to mock their immobility. Each of those stars represented destinations now forever out of reach, research missions abandoned, diplomatic encounters canceled, scientific breakthroughs left unexplored. Behind her, the multinational alien crew moved with the defeated shuffle of beings who had exhausted every conceivable solution. The Zorax engineers, crystalline entities whose bodies refracted the dim light like living prisms, had dismantled and reassembled the quantum drive 17 times. Their fractal limbs would extend and retract with mathematical precision, running diagnostic sequences that became increasingly desperate with each passing cycle. Zara AX, the lead Zorax engineer, projected a holographic model of the drive's quantum matrix. Fractal patterns of light danced and collapsed, each simulation ending in the same catastrophic failure. Lines of probability scrolled beside the projection, a cascading waterfall of mathematical hopelessness. 27 hours remain before total life support failure, announced Kroll, the silicon-based rockform computational specialist. His voice was a low, gravelly monotone that seemed to vibrate through the ship's metal floors. Unlike organic beings, Kroll felt no fear, only a clinical assessment of diminishing probabilities. The Fluidian team, sentient liquid beings contained within specially designed environmental suits, bubbled and shifted restlessly. Their computational skills had run billions of simulation scenarios, each more elaborate than the last. Where mechanical solutions failed, they had attempted quantum probability manipulation. Where quantum techniques collapsed, they explored theoretical interdimensional interventions. Nothing worked. Elena Rodriguez understood the unspoken truth that hung in the ship's recycled atmosphere. They were dying. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but with the slow, grinding inevitability of a system consuming its last reserves of hope. She remembered the Horizon's launch ceremony. 5 species, united in the pursuit of scientific exploration. The Galactic Research Consortium had been more than a mission. It was a symbol of interstellar cooperation. Now it would become a monument to failure, a frozen tomb drifting through the indifferent vacuum of space. The ship's emergency supplies told a grim story. Nutrient reserves at 12%, atmospheric recycling capabilities degrading, quantum drive completely non-responsive. Each system failure reduced their chances of survival by exponential margins. Kroll's computational display flickered. Survival probability 0.37%. A bitter laugh escaped Elena's lips. Mathematically precise. Mathematically final. The luminaries, energy-based entities that typically glowed with an internal radiance, had dimmed to barely visible specters. Their quantum mechanics expertise had proven useless against the drive's inexplicable failure. Where they once pulsed with brilliant potential, now they simply existed, waiting. Zara AX approached Elena, crystal limbs moving with uncharacteristic hesitation. "We have exhausted all known technological interventions," the Zorax engineer reported. The statement carried the weight of collective defeat, centuries of advanced scientific knowledge rendered impotent by a single catastrophic system failure. Outside, space remained unchanged, indifferent, infinite. Elena Rodriguez closed her eyes. 32 days of fighting against the inevitable. 32 days of maintaining hope when every system screamed that hope was mathematically impossible. A faint communication signal sparked across the emergency band. Weak, distant, almost imagined. For the first time in weeks, something changed. The communication signal stuttered and sparked, a fragile thread of hope in the Horizon's dying systems. Elena Rodriguez leaned forward, her breath catching in her throat as the garbled transmission began to resolve. "Horizon, this is Lieutenant Jack Harper of the U.S. Mackenzie. We've received your distress signal and are preparing emergency approach vector." Kroll's computational systems immediately began analyzing the incoming transmission. The rock-form specialist's silicon-based body trembled with mathematical precision as probability matrices flickered across his translucent form. Incoming vessel detected. Identification: Human Research Vessel. Classification: Mackenzie-class exploratory ship. Zora AX, the lead Zorax engineer, projected a holographic representation of the approaching vessel. The human ship was small, almost laughably so, compared to the massive research vessel. Its design seemed almost crude by galactic standards. Angular, with exposed maintenance panels and a hull that looked like it had been patched together from multiple sources. A human vessel. The Fluidian communication specialist, a being of liquid consciousness contained within an environmental suit, bubbled with barely contained skepticism. Probability of successful rescue: statistically improbable. Elena knew the skepticism was well-founded. Humans were a relatively new species in galactic exploration, barely a century into interstellar travel. Most advanced civilizations would have calculated the fuel cost and rescue probability as prohibitively low. Yet here they were. The ship's communication systems crackled to life again. "Horizon, this is Lieutenant Harper. We're experiencing some minor navigation challenges, but we'll be docking in approximately 17 minutes. Prepare for emergency interface procedures." Minor navigation challenges. The phrase hung in the air, a testament to human understatement. Most species would have detailed the exact nature of their approach, the computational complexities, the potential risks. Harper's message was almost casual, as if navigating that disabled research vessel in deep space was tantamount to parallel parking. Zara X's crystal form shifted, refracting the emergency lighting in complex patterns that betrayed confusion. Their approach vector defies standard navigation protocols. The quantum drift calculations are unconventional. On the main view screen, the U.S. Mackenzie grew larger. Its design was a patchwork of functionality. External maintenance arms seemingly welded on as afterthoughts, hull sections with different metallic compositions suggesting frequent repairs. It looked less like a precision-engineered research vessel and more like something cobbled together from spare parts. "Incoming transmission," announced the Fluidian communication specialist. Lieutenant Jack Harper's face appeared on the screen. He was younger than Elena expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with a worn tactical jumpsuit that looked like it had seen more adventures than regulation would approve. A half-empty coffee container sat just outside the camera's view, and what appeared to be technical schematics were scattered behind him. "Looks like you folks are having a rough week," Harper said, a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The statement was so monumentally understated that it drew a sharp, unexpected laugh from Elena. Kroll's computational systems ran rapid analysis. Incoming vessel's approach defies standard navigation algorithms by 237% deviation from expected parameters. The luminaires, energy-based entities typically known for their calm mathematical precision, flickered with what could only be described as confusion. Their quantum mechanics expertise struggled to comprehend the human vessel's approach. "Docking sequence initiated," Harper's voice announced. "Prepare for emergency interface." The bridge fell silent. 17 minutes between certain death and potential salvation. 17 minutes that would define the fate of an entire research mission. 17 minutes that would challenge everything the Galactic Research Consortium understood about rescue operations. As the U.S. Mackenzie's hull began to align with the Horizon's emergency docking port, Elena Rodriguez felt something she hadn't experienced in 32 days. The emergency airlock hissed open with a sound that was half mechanical, half organic. Lieutenant Jack Harper stepped through, and the entire bridge of the Horizon collectively held its breath. He looked nothing like the typical interstellar engineer. His tactical jumpsuit bore the marks of countless repairs, patches of different materials, reinforced seams, utility loops that held an eclectic collection of tools. A complex multi-tool hung from his belt alongside what appeared to be a modified communication device and something that looked suspiciously like a custom-built diagnostic scanner. Harper's eyes swept the bridge with an intensity that seemed to see beyond the physical space. Where most species would approach with diplomatic caution, he moved with the confident stride of someone who viewed technical challenges as puzzles waiting to be solved. "Interesting," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. His hand already traced patterns in the air, fingers moving as if mapping out invisible connections. Captain Elena Rodriguez studied him carefully. Most would see a young human with an irreverent grin and dismiss him. But she recognized something dangerous in his eyes, the look of someone who solved problems by completely ignoring the word impossible. Zara AX, the Zorax lead engineer, extended a crystalline limb in the standard galactic greeting. The gesture was precise, mathematically calculated to demonstrate peaceful intentions. Harper responded with a casual two-finger salute that violated every known diplomatic protocol. "So," he said, dropping a well-worn technical case on the nearest console, "which one of you wants to tell me about the quantum drive?" The Fluidian communication specialist bubbled with barely contained skepticism. Their liquid form shifted within its environmental suit, creating complex patterns that typically conveyed complex emotional states. "We have spent 32 standard cycles analyzing every possible intervention," the being reported, each word carefully modulated. Harper's response was a laugh that seemed to catch everyone by surprise. 32 cycles. That's cute. Kroll, the silicon-based computational specialist, immediately began running probability matrices. Harper's casual dismissal defied every known statistical model of professional scientific discourse. The computational readings flickered wildly, unable to categorize the human's response. "I'm going to need a full diagnostic report," Harper continued, already pulling out a complex array of diagnostic tools that looked like they had been cobbled together from multiple technological sources. Each device seemed to have been modified, with additional components welded or integrated in ways that violated standard engineering practices. The luminaries, energy-based entities known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, dimmed slightly. Their typical radiant form flickered with what could only be described as confusion. Humans were not supposed to be this direct, not supposed to be this confident. Elena watched the interaction with fascination. Harper moved through the ship's systems with an intuitive grace that seemed to defy logical progression. Where the alien crew had approached the quantum drive as a complex mathematical problem, he seemed to view it as a living, breathing entity. "Your quantum matrix is singing the wrong song," Harper muttered, fingers dancing across a holographic interface that he seemed to have conjured from nowhere. The device looked like it had been built from spare parts, with exposed circuits and what appeared to be a coffee stain on its outer casing. Zara X's crystalline form refracted light in patterns of pure mathematical confusion. "The quantum matrix does not sing." Harper looked up, a dangerous glint in his eye. "Everything sings," he said. "You just have to know how to listen." The bridge fell silent. It was not the statement of a scientist. It was the declaration of someone who understood something fundamental that everyone else had missed. Kroll's computational systems began to spin new probability models. The human's approach defied every known scientific protocol. And yet, there was something, a pattern, a possibility, that demanded further investigation. Captain Rodriguez felt a spark of something she had not experienced in 32 days. Hope, and something else. Excitement. The Quantum Drive Diagnostic Lab resembled a cathedral of failed science. 17 different analysis stations surrounded the central quantum matrix, each representing a method that had ultimately collapsed under the weight of its own complexity. Lieutenant Jack Harper moved through the space like a predator, his eyes tracking invisible patterns that no one else could see. "Your problem isn't in the quantum matrix," he announced, dropping a datapad filled with what looked like abstract art more than technical diagrams. You're treating this drive like a computer when it's actually more like a living organism." The alien engineers bristled. Decades of advanced training warred with the revolutionary simplicity of his observation. Zara X's crystalline form refracted the lab's diagnostic lights, creating complex geometric patterns that betrayed profound confusion. "Living organism." The Zorax engineer's voice carried the weight of mathematical certainty. "The quantum drive is a sophisticated piece of technological engineering. It does not possess biological characteristics." Harper's laugh was short and dangerous. "Everything has a language," he said, running his hand along the drive's exterior. "You just have to know how to listen." Kroll, the silicon-based computational specialist, began running rapid analysis. Harper's approach defied every known scientific protocol. The probability matrices flickered wildly, unable to categorize the human's unconventional methodology. With surprising gentleness, Harper began tracing a series of intricate patterns across the drive's surface. To the alien observers, it looked like nothing more than seemingly random touches, but something was changing. Microscopic quantum interactions began to shift in ways that defied their understanding. The Fluidian diagnostic team, sentient liquid beings contained within specialized environmental suits, bubbled with increasing agitation. Their computational skills had run billions of simulation scenarios, each more elaborate than the last. Where mechanical solutions failed, they had attempted quantum probability manipulation. Where quantum techniques collapsed, they explored theoretical interdimensional interventions. Harper pulled out a collection of tools that looked like they had been cobbled together from multiple technological sources. Each device seemed modified, with additional components welded or integrated in ways that violated standard engineering practices. A particularly complex-looking device appeared to be constructed partially from what looked like a repurposed coffee maker. "You're approaching this all wrong," he muttered, more to himself than to the assembled alien experts. "The quantum drive isn't just a machine. It's a communication system." Zara AX projected a holographic model of the drive's internal structure. Fractal patterns of light danced and collapsed, each simulation ending in the same catastrophic failure. Lines of probability scrolled beside the projection, a cascading waterfall of mathematical hopelessness. Harper's fingers moved with an intuitive grace that seemed to defy logical progression. Where the alien crew saw complex mathematical equations, he appeared to see something else entirely, a living, breathing system with its own unique language. "Listen," he said softly, pressing his palm against the drive's central quantum matrix. The lab fell silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then microscopic quantum interactions began to shift. Patterns emerged that no computational model had ever predicted. The luminars, energy-based entities typically known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, flickered with what could only be described as confusion. "Impossible," Kroll announced, even as his computational systems began registering changes that defied every known scientific model. Harper continued his seemingly random touches, each movement calculated yet appearing completely spontaneous. To the alien observers, it looked like he was playing some incomprehensible musical instrument, coaxing responses from the quantum drive as if it were a living being. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched with growing fascination. The human wasn't just attempting a repair. He was conducting a conversation. "Your drive isn't broken," Harper said suddenly. "It's been trying to tell you something for 32 days. You just haven't been listening." The lab hung in a moment of perfect, breathless silence. Something was changing. The tension in the repair bay could have been cut with a quantum laser. Lieutenant Jack Harper's repair method was nothing short of technological heresy, an approach that made the assembled alien engineers recoil in collective horror. Zara AX, the lead Zorax engineer, projected a holographic probability matrix that burned with desperate calculations. Intervention probability of success, 0.03%, the crystalline being announced. Probability of complete system destruction, 99.97%. Harper's response was a trademark human shrug. "Those are pretty good odds," he muttered, adjusting a collection of tools that looked like they had been cobbled together from 3 different technological generations. The Fluidian computational specialists bubbled with barely contained anxiety. Their liquid forms shifted within specialized environmental suits, creating complex patterns that typically conveyed deep mathematical concern. Every computational model they had run suggested absolute catastrophic failure. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from the observation deck, her hand unconsciously gripping the safety railing. The human's confidence was either the most brilliant display of engineering she had ever witnessed or the most spectacular suicide mission in galactic history. "You might want to step back," Harper called out casually to the assembled alien experts. "This might get a bit unpredictable." Kroll, the silicon-based computational specialist, ran rapid probability scenarios. The human's approach violated every known scientific protocol. His diagnostic tools looked like they had been assembled from spare parts, a modified communication device here. What appeared to be a repurposed coffee maker component there, circuits exposed and held together with what looked like emergency sealant and pure determination. The quantum drive sat at the center of the massive repair bay. What had been a dormant piece of technological marvel was now about to become the center of an experiment that defied all known scientific understanding. Harper moved with an intuitive grace that seemed to defy logical progression. Where the alien crew would take hours to prepare, he seemed to be improvising a complex symphony of technological intervention. His fingers danced across specialized interfaces, creating connection patterns that looked more like abstract art than scientific methodology. "You're treating this like a machine," he muttered, more to himself than to the assembled experts. "But it's not a machine. It's a communication system." The luminaires, energy-based entities known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, began to dim. Their typical radiant form flickered with what could only be described as pure mathematical confusion. Zera X's crystalline form refracted the diagnostic lights in patterns of increasing agitation. Intervention parameters are completely outside of acceptable scientific protocols, the Zorax engineer reported, each word laden with centuries of scientific tradition. Harper looked up, a dangerous glint in his eye. "Protocols are just suggestions," he said, "made by people who haven't figured out how to listen." The repair bay fell into a pregnant silence. Microscopic quantum interactions began to shift. Patterns emerged that no computational model had ever predicted. The exposed circuits of Harper's modified diagnostic tools began to pulse with an energy that seemed to defy conventional understanding. "Initiating quantum resonance realignment," Harper announced. The phrase sounded almost casual, as if he were ordering coffee rather than attempting to resurrect a seemingly dead quantum drive. The alien experts leaned forward. Computational matrices spun wildly. Probability scenarios collapsed and reformed in millisecond intervals. Something was happening. The quantum drive began to vibrate, not with the mechanical precision of a standard technological intervention, but with a rhythm that suggested something closer to communication than mere mechanical repair. "Talk to me," Harper muttered, his hands moving with an intuitive precision that seemed to blur the lines between engineering and something closer to art. The repair bay held its collective breath. 32 days of failure were about to be challenged by 37 minutes of pure human audacity. 37 minutes. That was all it took to shatter everything the Galactic Research Consortium thought they knew about quantum engineering. The quantum drive hummed to life with a resonance that defied every known scientific principle. Lieutenant Jack Harper stood back, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead, watching as the impossible unfolded before the stunned eyes of the alien crew. Zera X's crystalline form flickered with mathematical disbelief. The probability matrices that had predicted certain destruction now showed something entirely unprecedented. Not just restoration, but a fundamental transformation that exceeded every computational model. Efficiency increased by 22%, Kroll announced, his silicon-based computational systems running rapid analysis. The statement came out almost like a question, as if the numbers themselves couldn't believe what they were reporting. The Fluidian specialists bubbled with a mixture of confusion and emergent excitement. Their liquid forms shifted within environmental suits, creating complex patterns that typically conveyed deep computational processing. Where their most advanced algorithms had failed, this human had succeeded with what appeared to be nothing more than intuition and a collection of mismatched tools. Harper wiped his hands on his worn tactical jumpsuit, leaving behind a streak of quantum calibration residue. She just needed someone to listen, he muttered, more to himself than to the assembled alien experts. Captain Elena Rodriguez approached the quantum drive, her scientific training mooring with the evidence before her eyes. The drive's quantum matrix now pulsed with a living energy that suggested something far beyond mere mechanical repair. It wasn't just functioning, it was thriving. "Explain," demanded Zora AX, the Zorax engineer's crystalline limbs extending in a gesture that combined scientific curiosity with barely contained frustration. Harper's laugh was short and dangerous. "You were treating it like a machine," he said. "But every technological system has a language. You just have to know how to listen." The Luminars, energy-based entities known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, began to pulse with a new intensity. Their typical radiant form now flickered with what could only be described as a fundamental reassessment of scientific understanding. Computational displays across the repair bay showed impossible readings. The quantum drive had not just been restored, it had been transformed. Quantum interaction patterns emerged that defied every known scientific model. Where the alien crew saw complex mathematical equations, Harper appeared to see a living, breathing system with its own unique communication method. 32 days, Harper said, almost to himself. 32 days you've been trying to solve this like a mathematical problem. But technology isn't a puzzle. It's a conversation. Kroll's computational systems began generating new probability models. The humans' approach violated every known scientific protocol. Yet the results were undeniable. Efficiency increases, quantum stability beyond previous operational parameters, a fundamental restructuring that suggested a level of technological understanding that went beyond traditional engineering. The Fluidian diagnostic team moved their liquid forms in patterns of deep computational processing. Billions of simulation scenarios collapsed in the face of this singular, impossible intervention. "Impossible," Zara AX muttered, though the word carried less conviction with each passing moment. Harper's tools looked like they had been cobbled together from multiple technological sources. A modified communication device, what appeared to be a repurposed coffee maker component. Exposed circuits held together with emergency sealant and pure determination. Yet these seemingly crude instruments had accomplished what the most advanced technological minds in the galaxy could not. Captain Rodriguez recognized something profound happening. This wasn't just a repair. It was a fundamental reimagining of how technology could be understood. The quantum drive continued to pulse, not with the mechanical precision of a standard technological system, but with a rhythm that suggested something closer to communication, to life. 37 minutes had changed everything. The Galactic Research Consortium would never be the same. The conference room buzzed with a tension that transcended species boundaries. Lieutenant Jack Harper sat at the center of a gathering that represented the most advanced minds in the Galactic Research Consortium, looking simultaneously exhausted and impossibly pleased. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the proceedings with fascination. Where most scientific debriefings would have been sterile and formal, this one vibrated with an energy of pure intellectual revolution. "Your approach violates every known principle of quantum engineering," Zara AX declared, the Zorax engineer's crystalline form refracting diagnostic light in complex patterns of confusion and emerging understanding. Harper took a long sip from a coffee container that looked like it had survived multiple interstellar missions. "Principles are just limitations waiting to be challenged," he responded, a dangerous glint in his eye. The Fluidian computational specialists bubbled with intense intellectual excitement. Their liquid forms shifted within specialized environmental suits, creating intricate patterns that suggested deep cognitive processing. What had begun as skepticism had transformed into something closer to scientific reverence. Kroll, the silicon-based computational specialist, projected a holographic display showing the quantum drive's performance metrics. The graphs defied every previous understanding. Efficiency ratings that should have been impossible, quantum stability that rewrote fundamental technological assumptions. "I'm going to break this down simply," Harper said, pulling out a series of diagrams that looked more like abstract art than technical schematics. "You were trying to solve a communication problem with mathematical equations, but technology isn't just math. It's a language." The luminaries, energy-based entities known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, pulsed with an intensity that suggested fundamental cognitive recalibration. Their typically uniform energy now danced with chaotic potential. Elena recognized the moment of true scientific breakthrough. This wasn't just about repairing a quantum drive. This was about reimagining how technological systems could be understood. "Every system communicates," Harper continued, tracing complex patterns on the holographic display. "Machines, quantum drives, biological systems, they all have a language. Most scientists are too busy talking to actually listen." Zora EX's computational matrices began generating new probability scenarios. The human's approach suggested a fundamental paradigm shift that challenged centuries of established scientific understanding. Where traditional approaches saw technology as a series of mechanical interactions, Harper presented a model of technological interaction that was almost organic. The Fluidian team began cross-referencing Harper's approach with their most advanced computational models. Billions of simulation scenarios collapsed and reformed, revealing patterns that had previously been invisible. "Your intervention defies every known scientific protocol," Kroll announced, though the statement now carried more wonder than criticism. Harper's laugh was short and sharp. "Protocols are just suggestions made by people who haven't figured out how to truly understand a system." Captain Rodriguez saw something profound happening. This was more than a technological breakthrough. This was a cultural revelation that would reshape how multiple species understood technological interaction. The diagrams Harper presented looked like a fusion of technical schematics, musical notation, and what could only be described as abstract emotional mapping. Traditional engineers would have dismissed them as nonsensical, but the assembled experts now leaned forward with genuine scientific curiosity. "Technology isn't just about solving problems," Harper explained. "It's about building relationships, understanding the unique language of each system." The luminaries began to pulse in a rhythm that suggested emerging comprehension. Their energy patterns now danced with a complexity that mirrored the very quantum interactions Harper described. Zora EX's crystalline form shifted, creating projection patterns that suggested a fundamental reassessment of scientific methodology. The Zorax engineer had moved from complete skepticism to emerging understanding. "We have been approaching technological challenges as external problems," the engineer announced. "You suggest they are collaborative conversations." Harper's smile was dangerous and knowing. "Everything communicates," he repeated. "You just have to know how to listen." The conference room fell silent. Something fundamental had changed, not just in how they understood quantum technology, but in how they perceived the very nature of technological interaction. The Galactic Research Consortium would never be the same. 6 months after the quantum drive incident, the ripples of Lieutenant Jack Harper's intervention continued to reshape galactic scientific understanding. The Horizons research mission had transformed from a potential disaster into a landmark moment of interspecies technological exchange. Harper's approach had become more than just a successful repair. It was now a case study that challenged centuries of established scientific methodology. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched from the observation deck of the newly retrofitted research vessel. The ship's quantum drive now pulsed with an energy that seemed almost alive, a testament to the revolutionary intervention that had saved them. Zara AX, the Zorax lead engineer who had once been Harper's most vocal critic, now led a new interdisciplinary research team dedicated to exploring what they called communicative technology interfaces. The crystalline being's computational projections now incorporated complex interaction models that would have been dismissed as heretical mere months ago. We were listening, Zara AX often explained to junior researchers, but we were not hearing. The Galactic Research Consortium had undergone a fundamental transformation, where once their approach had been purely mathematical and mechanical, now they sought to understand technological systems as living, communicative entities. Harper's seemingly impossible repair had become a turning point in scientific philosophy. Kroll, the silicon-based computational specialist, had developed entirely new computational models that incorporated what humans called intuitive listening into technological diagnostic protocols. The mathematical matrices now included variables for emotional resonance and systemic communication that defied traditional computational logic. Lieutenant Harper, for his part, seemed almost unaware of the profound impact of his intervention. "Just did what needed doing," he would say with a characteristic shrug when asked about the breakthrough that had reshaped galactic technological understanding. The Fluidian research teams had been the first to fully embrace the new approach. Their liquid-based computational systems proved particularly adept at developing communication models that treated technological systems as interactive entities rather than static machines. Alina remembered the moment everything changed. 37 minutes that had transformed everything they understood about technological interaction. Research stations across multiple star systems began incorporating Harper's approach. What had once been considered a radical, almost mystical approach to engineering was now becoming standard practice. Universities developed entire new disciplines exploring the concept of technological communication. The luminaries, energy-based entities known for their precise quantum mechanics expertise, had developed entirely new research methodologies. Their energy patterns now incorporated complex interaction models that suggested a living, breathing approach to technological understanding. Humans, Zara X would explain to new researchers, do not see technology as a problem to be solved. They see it as a conversation to be understood. Harper's original repair tools, the modified communication device, the repurposed coffee maker component, the exposed circuits held together with emergency sealant, had become a museum exhibit, a testament to an approach that valued intuition over pure mathematical precision. The quantum drive that had once been moments from total failure now served as the primary research platform for a new generation of technological exploration. Its quantum matrix pulsed with a complexity that suggested something far beyond mere mechanical functionality. "We were trying to solve a problem," Captain Rodriguez would later write in her official report, "when what we really needed was to have a conversation." The Horizon continued its research mission, now a living testament to a fundamental shift in scientific understanding. Where once they had seen technology as an external system to be controlled, now they understood it as a collaborative partner to be understood. Lieutenant Jack Harper had long since moved on to another assignment, but his impact continued to reshape scientific understanding across multiple star systems. Somewhere in the vast galaxy, he was probably already working on his next impossible solution. The universe, it seemed, was learning to listen.